Welcome to a pod full of Saints on, what are we, Wednesday? I don't know, we lost track here. 15th of February 2023, Series 4, number 28, with myself, David Tavener, with a beaming Lee Wood over there.
Wind, Tavs, sorry, but yes, good evening. How are we doing, fellas? Are we okay?
Better than you got sound of it. And Jake, hopefully wind-free. How are you doing?
Yeah, just about. And very, very happy this week, I think it's fair to say.
Yes, down at Woodside Road on Saturday, an unbelievable match. It's funny, last week we conceded 3 goals away to bottom of the table, Hungerford Town. We were looking for a positive response. We all thought we'd get one from the team on the podcast last week. We were quite upbeat. But a total disaster, wasn't it? Conceded another 4 goals. It's all gone disastrously wrong. 5-4. What a game. What a magnificent game. It was like a cup tie. To me, the only surprise was after 69 minutes, the goal stopped because both sides looked full of goals and there were more going to come. I'll let you carry on with the superlatives now.
Okay, well, it's got to be up there, certainly for me, in one of the top 10 away days. Not in terms of the importance or the stature of the game, but just for the pure entertainment value alone. Obviously, the company was outstanding as well. I mean, it was total chaos on the pitch, utter carnage off of it. I'm not entirely sure how we dissect it. If you're looking at from a pure footballing point of view, Tavs, defensively, frailties everywhere. You know, we could pick holes in it, but I want to see it from the wider picture. What a game. An absolute belter. And I know that we were sort of saying that we wanted a reaction. And, you know, we weren't mucking around, were we? 2-0 up after whatever it was, 15 minutes. And we thought we were absolutely cruising. And then I wouldn't say it was a sucker punch per se, because I thought that Worthing came to play as well. But I think defensive frailties on both teams. I mean, it was one of those games where in the cold light of day, I still look back on it and I smile because it was such a momentous day in terms of what we saw and every emotion possible underneath the sun. And it was one for definitely the game of the season for me so far.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. It's funny because a high-scoring game, as we know, doesn't necessarily mean it's been a good game or an entertaining or even exciting one. Saturday was. It had everything. And you mentioned the defensive frailties. Well, long may they continue at both ends of the pitch. You also gave mention to Worthing there. I thought they looked a very good side going forward, but both sides looked good going forward. But sticking with them for a second, they were a good side. They played good football, they created chances, and they were good to watch. And you can see why they are up where they are. And they should make the playoffs, you'd have thought. But their position's a little bit more vulnerable after that defeat. I think, is it they got Dartford Saturday, wasn't it? One of the top teams out, so it's going to be tough. Yeah, but from our point of view, we attacked just as strongly as they did. What was your take on it, Jake?
Absolutely. I think if you take the scoreline out of it, it's a great result for us to go away to Worthing. Not many teams go there this season and get a victory. But yeah, absolute chaos of a game, wasn't it? Just absolute insanity. I'd say surprised the scoring stopped. But I mean, we're kind of lucky it didn't, because again, both sides had chances in that final 20 minutes. Worthing, a couple of ones that Dylan Berry just about, defence as well. Dylan went on a few walkabouts, didn't he? Which just added to the chaos as well. And at the other end, you know, again, the Saints, compare it to previous seasons, we're at times are so unbelievably clinical in front of goal, aren't we? I haven't seen a Saints side like it in a long time. But yeah, it feels like even now a very special day. And it certainly feels like it was almost the perfect springboard after Hungerford. And I think the Saints should be able to use it in the next couple of weeks, because absolutely amazing. But that's why we're all football fans, isn't it? It's a stupid sport. It's a ridiculous sport, but we love it.
Let's have a look at the finer detail. The first goal, Mitchell Weiss, what a delightful chip over the keeper. But what a fantastic ball by Tafari, more up to him. Mitch chested it down. Similar to later in the game when Zane Banton put Devante Stanley through for the winning goal. Again, another great through ball. It wasn't just a finish, it's a build-up as well. It's the whole thing.
You're absolutely right. But I think we're getting these connections now, aren't we? You know, we're seeing these partnerships in the middle of the park, everything's sort of coming off. You could see that the team were absolutely up for it from the absolute go. You know, trying to make a statement of intent from the first minute. And we certainly did that. The passing, and I think whereas before we were perhaps a bit slow to play on these 4G pitches, I think now you can sort of see now we are thriving it. You know, we're just looking forward, sort of taking on teams on these artificial surfaces. To firing more, Devante had another marauding game. Jeffers could have had a hat trick. He was a bit more clinical, but I just don't know how you dissect it, Tabs. I mean, do you take it at face value? Do you stop picking holes in it? Because if you do, I mean, I think Clarkey fell on his sword. He was the fall guy, wasn't he, at half time for what had gone on for the first 45. Adebayi come on, you know, a little bit stronger in the tackle as well. So, I mean, I just don't know where you start, Taz, because yes, there are plenty of pluses, but there are some things that to work on, which is going to give Nobby a headache, isn't it, going into the weekend? Because there's plenty there to dissect. It's just a matter of what he picks and chooses to work on.
We'll see what you two make of this. We questioned Nobby for the side he put out at Hungerford, not starting with Karen Wiltshire and Zane Banton. He brought them back in on Saturday, and we carried off from where we were last time in the team, which is win at Taunton, win against Hampton, and it was a better balanced side, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And I think we've talked about this so many times, haven't we? Nobby is a young manager. He's learning the role. And I think he would have learned a lot from that Hungerford game now in reflection in terms of squad selection. I think you could argue, did Kyron and Zane having a rest on Tuesday night help them perform to the levels they did at Worthing in what was a very intense and chaotic game? Potentially. But yeah, I thought at Worthing, you know, we had pretty much our strongest team out there. Maybe one or two. The defence again. Did Michael Clark starting there? I think there was one or two Saints fans before, and they'd be like a bit unsure. But otherwise, you know, strongest team, and especially in those attacking areas, when we have that team out at the minute, there's not many teams that can defend against us. And going forward was just absolutely brilliant. But as we've all said, at the back, still a few question marks over the team selection going forward.
I wouldn't even say it's sorry. I wouldn't even say it was a selection thing, Jake. The thing is, mate, we were 2-0 up and we kept pressing forward and we got quite a high press, which leaves gaps in behind, you know. And when you get Devante and Tafari Moore running back towards their own goal, you know that you're in trouble. I don't think we learnt from that quick enough. We learnt from it in the end and we sat a bit deeper and we didn't give them as much time on the ball. And their playmakers in the middle of the park didn't have as much time to make those passes. But in the first half in particular, first 20, 25 minutes, if you look at it, everything that they attacked with was the ball over the top behind our defence because we were pushing on. We had the 2-0 cushion and we were going for the third. But obviously, when you push forward and you commit men, you leave space in behind, mate.
Well, Mitchell Weiss puts up 1 up in 5 minutes. 4 minutes later, you remember that incident, all over the top. You mentioned it. Lewis White went through. Was it Lewis White? Yeah, well, Lewis White went through. And out comes Dylan Berry, depending which colours you're wearing, took him out, or White went down generously. Any fears then it was going to be a red card?
I didn't know because there was quite a few defenders to the right covering where the ball was going. So, to be fair, I thought the referee got the call right in the end. Although, I mean, watching the game back and watching the Worthing highlights, they've posted a video yesterday from a pitch side view in that corner. It's a tight one. There probably is just about contact, but it's hard to tell. But I was never fearful of a red. There was defenders covering, and it's a bit of a throwback to when Dylan did that when he first joined us, didn't he? So he's still got a thing or two left to learn, but I wasn't too worried.
It's funny, the penalty which we got from which Shaun Jeffers put us 2-0 up with less than a quarter of a game gone. I thought it was a definite penalty at times. I was looking for it on my camera, so you don't get the best view of that time. And watching the highlights, that was a generous decision, wasn't it?
Really? What part of it wasn't a foul?
Watch it again. Watch it again, Lee.
Yeah, but the thing is, the defender was on the wrong side of the ball. He got caught out. There's a clear nudge. It was it wasn't the hardest challenge, you'll see, but definite pen for me. For me, definite penalty.
I'm sure if your little girl touched you as hard as that, you wouldn't go down.
She does, mate. But you know what? After a few beers, who knows?
But that's nitpicking anyway. As we just keep saying, it was a joy to behold. Another good thing as well was Shay Cooper coming off the bench, anonymous at Hungerford, but that was more to do with the way we played, I felt, rather than what he played. Within 2 minutes, Devante setting him up, and bang, another goal.
And he could have had two, couldn't he? You know, I thought he did really well. I thought he looked direct, but without, you know, he was really sort of challenging the back four, looking to run at people and commit them early. It's to have these sorts of players now, and it's almost that's where Joe Neal should have been a year ago. You know, coming off that impact player, scoring goals as well, creating chances for others. Really good. One thing I would have to say as well that I want to mention, the supporters. We travelled in good numbers, not just the noisy ones. You know, there were quite a few at the side, quite a few in the stand. I don't know whether you heard it on the highlights. I did notice the dulcet tones of Mr. Kevin Mudd, almost sort of giving his mates a running commentary throughout. Some choice language in there, but as you would expect with Mr. K Mudd. But I thought the fans were absolutely outstanding. And what was excellent as well for those that were there, which shouldn't have been there, and those were there that actually were there, was that they were young and old behind the goal. Like there was a gentleman to me who was 80 odd and his friend. And then downstairs there were the kids, and then Ray Curran was there. I don't know whether he'd taken something, but he was leaping around as though he was like a 15-year-old boy again. And this is the sort of thing that we need to see more of at Saints, at Saints games. And it's just a testament to what is now being offered to us. And if it continues to do so, the fans will continue to come out and support. And it's just an absolutely brilliant time to be a Saint.
Yeah, the numbers down there, it was terrific. Getting back to Shay Cooper, when he came on, we all thought, why didn't he put Glenn McConnell on? He can get goals and whatnot. And after the way we've seen Shay at Hungerford, thought maybe put McConnell on. But when you got two lone players like that, two young players of real quality.
It's excellent squad and player management, I think, from Nobby there. You know, Shay would have come away from Hungerford, I think, thinking, oh God, what have I signed up for? You know, I've had a shocker in this team on this pitch at Hungerford. I'm here for the rest of the season. Am I going to get back in the team when I've got players like Glenn McConnell, who's just beating Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Youth Cup, set up a tie at the Emirates against Arsenal? But, you know, Nobby's put his faith into him. And I think, you know, Nobby probably saw how open that game was and thought, this is the kind of game where an attacking midfielder that's got the experience that Shay has, even at this age, can do something. And as Lee says, I think that directness and especially that speed as well. I think Glenn's got that trickiness and directness. He's still got a lot to learn, but I thought Shay really impressed there. And the finish as well looks like a simple one, doesn't it? But to really hit the target from there, low and hard, brilliant finish. And to do exactly what he did. So really good management from Nobby, I think, there.
And good to see Zane Banton starting chipping with a few goals, 7 for the season now, and 49 in his career. So he'll get his 50th on Saturday down at Weymouth.
That's the attitude.
Don't you just love it, the Tadgers being so optimistic? Give him like a 5-4, mate, you know, and away he goes.
Would you remember the last 5-4, Lee? I would imagine you were there, away to Bedford Town.
Yes, Mr. Watson Co. Colin Toms and I were discussing this. Well, he was berating me. He goes, they can't be sort of too many 5-4s. We were talking about Merthyr, obviously. And I said, well, there must have been... Yeah, but by the law of averages, there would have to have been at least, I'm guessing 8 or 9 over the course of our entire existence. David I'm sure he's going to tell me how many there were.
Well, that was our 6th 5-4 win.
Yeah.
So you want to be really miserable and have a 5-4 defeats as well. There won't be many of those. Oh, so are. So 10.
Well,
10 5-4 defeats.
Yeah. But to be honest with you, Tavs, I'll say this once, I'll say it again. Give me that sort of game any day of the week. There is there's an argument to be had for having these sort of close last-minute winners, the 2-1s, the 1-0s. But in terms of atmosphere and in terms of excitement, Saturday, seriously, I've been following this side for decades now. That really was up there for an away day. A little bit of a sour note, maybe. The Worthing fans had massive chips on their shoulders. And I think that even we spoke to some before the game, we spoke to quite a few after the game in the pub. We were told not to go in the bar because a few of the boys didn't take too well to losing. So I'm thinking, well, obviously we've harked back to 1985 when that sort of mentality was last around, I guess. I mean, we're speaking to some of their fans in the bar. Geez, I mean, they think the world owes them a favour. I'm not entirely sure why. You know, it was all in good grace, I guess, and the Saints fans were impeccably behaved. But we've been to away games before, and the opposition fans are normally quite graceful in defeat, and they're willing to have a beer with you and have a chat. But I just think that the atmosphere wasn't the greatest after the game for us, and we didn't spend too long, did we? For those who went, sorry, Jake, in Worthing. So we left, but we had a good day, and the Saints fans can hold their heads high because they certainly contributed to a spectacle. Really was great.
Well, their fans should be used to it, Lee. It's their 5th home league defeat of the season. That's even more than us, for goodness sake. Second time we scored 5 down there, and that's the 5th club we've scored 5 away to in the league. So no, it's the 7th club, I think. Yeah, 7th club. Anyway, there we go. Enough of that waffle.
I thought Nobby's post match was actually quite interesting as well. I thought, you know, obviously very happy, but not overly gleeful. And I thought you could sort of see the cogs whirring in terms of this defence worries me. In terms of this, there's issues here that I quickly need to address. And that's probably going forward now, isn't it? Sort of thinking about what does he do there and how does he address that? Because that is 7 goals in 2 games, which, you know, we may have won on Saturday, but it's still concerns, especially at the minute, because everyone else around us is winning as well. I think, you know, Saturday's win at Worthing was really important in that regard, but also everyone else around us is grinding out victories at the minute. We've got to try and make sure that we don't suffer another sucker punch like Hungerford in the next few weeks.
Yeah, but he's got his manager's hat on, though. You know what I mean? He's looking at it from his manager's point of view, but ultimately, goals win games, and we're still scoring for the large part. I think he's got to have looked back at that and think, what the hell is going on? You know, as this is all unfolding before his very eyes. It's not ideal from a management point of view, but the concerns only come to fruition if they're costing us games. I mean, Hungerford was just a bad result, and I think we were quick to sort of pick up on that anyway. But, you know, you can't go too much into detail with a game like that. It's a one-off. If we have another 5-4 again this season, I think we've done extremely well. But, you know, just don't read too much into it. It was just a really, really random game.
Maybe some concern for Nobby defensively, because that's 3 times in the last 5 games we've conceded 3 or more goals, which is a little bit of an alarming statistic. But over the season, the defence and goalkeeper, that's been our strength.
Absolutely. We know we've got the players there. And also, importantly, Nobby wasn't afraid to make that change, was he, at half-time?
Yeah.
You know, and as Lee said, you know, the defence did still struggle second half, but that change did have a positive impact, and we came out and won it. And, you know, Adebayo did make a few important challenges. And, you know, again, under previous managers, we saw how hesitant they were to make changes to starting 11s, you know, 60, 70 minutes into a game, let alone 45 minutes. So I think, again, that's really good to see. And I think we all have trust in Nobby and the management team to get things right and get things going. And I say going, I mean, you just saw the scenes at the end Saturday. Everything's very good at the minute. And it's just really minor tweaks, isn't it, for Nobby at the minute? And you'd rather be in that position than sort of just above the bottom 3, struggling for points at the minute.
Another player who went off quite early was Mitchell Weiss after, 56 minutes? But that was with an injury. But in the time leading up to that, wasn't it great to see him return to form? Scored an excellent goal, and his all-round play, that's a Mitch we saw a few weeks back.
First half in particular, I thought his vision, his reading of the game, it's not something I really appreciated a great deal, if I'm honest. But the fact is that he does draw those defenders across, and he's always looking. He's always that one step ahead. Excuse me. And I think his link-up play with Devante as well, and Jeffers sort of comes into that trio, exceptional. You know, I was probably quite critical of him for the Oxford game, but you know, as we say, good players have bad days. I think as well, it's the style of play that we have. You know, when we went 2-0 up, we could have easily shut up shop and tried to see out the game. But I don't believe under previous managers we had that sort of player. But also, what is the point of having all these beautifully attacking players if you're not going to attack them? You know, if you're not going to utilise their skills, and which was one of the issues we had under Ian. He wasn't using player skill sets properly. So, listen, we can pick holes in this all day long because it was that sort of game. But ultimately, we won the game. Players played well. And what I did love, as Jake alluded to there, was the use of substitutions, using the squad players, getting them some minutes under the belt as well. And the players are going to come away. You could see the scenes after the final whistle, Dave. All the players, they loved it, you know. And it wasn't the best game of football in terms of the structure and the shape and the way they set up. And they obviously didn't train for it to be a 5-4 game. But my God, I'm pretty glad that they think it was, because it was such a glorious day.
One tactic which I didn't understand was late in the game when Weymouth were not Weymouth, we weren't playing them once away this season, aren't we? Worthing got a few corners, and they even sent their goalkeeper out. He's not the tallest player in the world, but they could do it without any fear of us breaking away because we had absolutely everybody back as usual. If we stuck a couple of up, the keeper wouldn't have been able to get it out of his box. 2, maybe 3 defenders would have gone as well, and that would have eased the pressure. But as it was, when the keeper went up, the ball got half cleared, and it could go straight back in again without any fear of their player being put under pressure. I know a lot of clubs do it now. It's supposedly the modern game, but I would have thought it's one way you can make life a bit easier when you're under the cosh.
Last 10 minutes, though, if you noticed, we broke with pace. They were committing to too many forward, and when the ball did come to us, we were using it intelligently as well. We weren't just hoofing it, playing for percentage, playing for territory. We were getting it down, and we were using our speedsters to really stretch the game. And they were always on the back foot, Worthing, that second half. Once Adebayi came on, and I think it was the last 20, yes, they had some chances. They had some good chances, but it didn't look as fraught. It didn't look as you know, just gone with the wind. It was really, really structured, and we played well. We had a plan to see out the game. As soon as we got the 5th goal, I thought from then on in, you can't really, you say that, you thought it was ours to throw away. And I thought we played intelligently, especially for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. You mentioned the pitch earlier, Lee. I thought it played really well. It was a plastic pitch, 4G, I suppose, and it was a good true one because 2 of them are a bit dodgy, but that helped the game as well.
You talk about the way football is going, Tabs. You know, there could be an argument, mate, for this, not in the immediate future, but certainly, of course, you know, if we're going to have these type of players, you know, all these academy boys and all these league players, they're going to play on these surfaces throughout the course of midweek. There's an argument to be had. I mean, we could argue that we like a good old-fashioned grass surface, but I work with quite a lot of clubs in Scotland, and ultimately their climate is a bit different up there than it is to down here. But they've all got 4G pitches now, especially in the lower leagues, because it's, you know, it's just the availability of it, but also it's the way that the game is going in terms of the way people want to play the game now. Everyone's trying to pass out from the back, which you hate. Everyone's playing on 4G pitches, which you hate. Everyone's committing men forward, which you hate. But ultimately, it's just the way it's going, mate. And there is a trajectory of a lot of our clubs now, clubs in our division, have now come across these 4G pitches. Harpenden are going to have theirs installed in the summer. The council have just rejuvenated 4 areas around the district for 4G pitches. I'm not entirely sure we're quite there at Clarence Park yet, but it's not the voodoo over us that it was in previous seasons.
Well, as you know, you're not allowed a plastic pitch in the Football League, which is obviously why we haven't got one. And also, going back to walking the ball out of defence, that's what cost Worthing one of the goals, the third goal, I think it was. Mitchell Weiss got a tackle in and Zane Banton scored. Through that tactic, Worthing may have cost themselves 3 points. I never understand why clubs do it. At our level, they're not good enough. Players will get caught. Mind you, see it at the top level of the game as well. It's needlessly putting yourselves under pressure, and every now and then you will get caught.
One thing that struck me as well in the first half, the keeper, you spoke about him earlier on, he was quite small and he wasn't dictating, he wasn't calling out to his defenders. He wasn't telling them, he wasn't giving them any direction at all. He was really, really quiet. And he made a couple of good saves, most notably from Jeffers in the first half. He had a really good effort tipped around the post. But I just got the feeling that the defenders didn't really have a lot of faith in him because he didn't talk to them and there was no communication. And I don't know whether that sort of played a part in it as well, but he didn't really look comfortable with the ball at his feet. Excellent shot stopper. You know, it's been shown that. But in terms of communication, ball at his feet, he struggled for me.
Good job, he was an excellent shot stop. What's it called? A shot stopper.
That as well.
Otherwise, we might have scored a lot of goals.
Yeah. Well, we had chances, which was brilliant.
We got five.
But before we move on as well, I think there's a certain right wing back we should mention as well. Devante Stanley, who had quite the game, didn't he? I think it's fair to say. Is it 2 assists, Dave? Won the winning goal as well. Not a bad afternoon's work for a bloke who is meant to be a defender, but is suddenly looking like one of our better attacking players. And I think the fans have fallen in love with him as well. So absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
Lee mentioned him earlier, and Tafari Moore as well. Those two hit in form again. That made hell of a difference to our performance. One player we haven't mentioned yet is Coventry City's Ricardo Di Sciolio again, back in the side. He's not used to letting in 4 goals when he plays for us.
He will, mate, when he goes to Coventry City. I know that.
I think it does feel like that Callum Adebayo and Joy McKenna do. I think when they're with Detrolio, I think that is at the moment the strongest back three there. I think you have to say. I think second half at Worthing there was improvements, and I think at Hungerford you saw that we missed him. I think so. It's good to see them back together, and hopefully they can rebuild that partnership or connection between the three of them again that brought some very good results previously.
Another player who came off the bench. Wonder what the future holds for him. Hugh Dawson, 26 appearances this season, 18 of them coming off the bench. Whereas towards the end of the last season, he was establishing himself quite firmly in the side. What are your thoughts on that? Just a good squad member at the moment.
Yeah, it's a good squad member, and he comes on and he does an exceptional role. But unfortunately, there's better players ahead of him. That's just simple. I'm not saying that he's not. He's proven his worth. He's proven his worth tenfold in terms of his consistency, if nothing else. And that over the course of a season is like gold dust. He's a fantastic player, and I think he's a finisher. I think when he sort of sees games out, but is he better than Wiltshire, Blackman in the middle of the park at the minute? I would say no, and that's why he's currently warming a seat on the bench.
Fair enough. Right, are we done and dusted with Woodside Road?
Yeah, I think so. I think we are. Yeah.
Right, we move on to Radipole Lane, home of Weymouth. That's where we are this coming Saturday, the 18th of February. They're not having the best of seasons. Lost 7, I think it is, of the last 9. After a couple of wins there, seem to be getting them out of trouble, but they're back in trouble again. This time, surely Nobby will start with his perceived strongest 11, despite having a home game coming up against Ebbsfleet on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to place. I mean, look, let's just play what is in front of you. Let's Ebbsfleet worry about that. Let's worry about that after the game. I think Weymouth are there for the taking. And as Jake's alluded to earlier on, you don't want another Hungerford situation where maybe overconfident. And Jake, you said again, mate, the fact that just stop resting players because you want to use that squad rotation system. I think Nobby is slowly learning now that he knows his starting 11. Play that. They've had a week off. They would have trained hard. They would have played hard. And just go into it with a full of confidence now. Try and tighten up a few of those areas at the back. And we should be good for the 3 points. But then again, it's all about the confidence and the way we approach the game.
Any changes for you, Jake?
Well, I wouldn't know. I'd probably start Adebayo. I think I'd start Adebayo alongside Joy and DiTrolio. Other than that, I'm not really sure what you can change to that team at the minute. I think, that in the midfield and the attacking sense, those players didn't do much wrong at Worthing, really, scoring 5 goals. Defence, I think you'd make that one change that I'd suggest. But other than that, you've got to get your strongest team on the pitch because you want to pick up 3 points at Weymouth on Saturday. They're not going to be rollovers. We know that. It's going to be difficult. But when you've got Ebbsfleet 3 days later at home, that's a much tougher challenge. You've got to get those points on the board. Because as we said earlier, teams in and around us, everyone's picking up victories at the minute. If we're not careful, you could easily drop out the playoffs with just one loss the way it's going. So, strongest team at Weymouth and see how it goes. I think it'd be great to see McConnell feature at some point as a substitute because the following Thursday, he's playing for Cambridge United's youth team at the Emirates against Arsenal. So I don't know if he'll feature in the squad against Ebbsfleet. But the great thing is we've got these players to come off the bench. Cooper, McConnell, Dawson, Joe Neal, etc. All these players, all of whom I have confidence if they come on can change a game for us.
Of course, if Mitch isn't fit on Saturday, you can either start with McConnell or Cooper. As you mentioned there, he has got choices. I don't see McConnell being involved on Tuesday for the reason you mentioned, the FA Youth Cup game 2 days later. Admission to that, by the way, is only £4. So if you fancy going up to the Emirates, that sounds a bargain. No payment on the day, so you've got to pay in advance. It's a bit like some clubs close to Clarence Park, really. Right, so we're confident of victory there. Right, next Tuesday then, Ebbsfleet. But they had a dodgy spell over Christmas. Dartford sorted them out well and truly. Since then, they bounced back 7 straight wins, then dropped a couple of points last night. 0-0 draw at Chippenham. They are well clear. In the last 20 games against them, either as Ebbsfleet United or Gravesend and Northfleet, we've won 2, drawn 1, lost 17. So we can go into it with a lot of confidence from that.
If you say that, though, their biggest obstacle is going to be their complacency, isn't it? Yeah. So let's not... last night's game at Chippenham proved that they're not world beaters by any stretch. And yes, they are absolutely running away with this at a canter. But however, it's their complacency. Are there, their players might not be as much up for it as they were back in August. So, there's nothing to fear there. There's nothing, yes, they're a good side, and they always turn us over at their place. But Clarence Park, we've got a different squad now to when we played them back then as well. So I think we have to sort of go in it confident that we can be competitive with them.
It's interesting what you say about their complacency, Lee. You were at Stonebridge Road, I think, Jake, if I remember rightly. They were 3-0 up. They had a man sent off. We came back into it really well. But you also felt they did ease up a bit. Might have learnt a lesson from Ben, of course. But you'd like to think the way we're playing at the moment, we will get at them. And it promises to be a very good game.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully this time around we don't lose 2 players inside the first half hour with injuries, which end up with the aforementioned Hugh Dawson playing in goal for 60 minutes. That's never going to help you, is it? And Michael Clark as well, who's in decent form at the time, going off with an injury as well. So hopefully we can actually keep all our players on the pitch in the first half hour. That would be great, and then we can build on it from there. I say it's going to be difficult. But we just got to go out there and play our own game. I'm sure Nobby might be minded to play a little bit more defensively at times. He might ask Devante and Tafari to hold back a little bit more. But I think we've got to go out there, and of course it's going to depend, isn't it, on the performance and result at Weymouth. That can tell everything. But go out there against Ebbsfleet, our first home game in a while. I think it'll be a really good crowd on a Tuesday night under the lights. Go out there, play your own game, and just express yourselves because you just never know. I mean, that game at Ebbsfleet, that second half, we controlled a lot of that. And if we'd managed to get a second goal, you'd never have known. But yeah, Chippenham have shown that they're not well beaters, as Lee said. And the pressure is on Ebbsfleet. It's not on us in that game. Ebbsfleet have got to go out there and get a win to keep that gap at the top. So we'll see. But, I have faith in Nobby and the lads just, to do something at least.
Because you mentioned the 2 early injuries we got at Stonebridge Road. One of them was Michael Johnson, who hasn't played since then, although he's now back in full training and will be considered for the B team reserves, academy, whatever you want to call the blooming thing. So he'll get some football under his belt soon. Dylan Berry, he will not be happy conceding 7 goals in the last 2 games, not at all. He didn't have his best game at Hungerford, didn't do a lot wrong at Worthing on Saturday. But I believe you got some news on our second choice goalkeeper, Jake.
Yeah, Loris Marciman's gone to AFC Russian and Diamonds. So best of luck to him for the rest of the season. I don't think it's any surprise, is it, with Michael Johnson now coming back to some sort of fitness, even though he hasn't played yet because the B team game got postponed at the weekend. But yeah, you talk about MJ, but I mean, Dylan Berry, it might not be spectacular performance at the minute, but he's still making good saves. I think, in the dying minutes at Worthing, he had a cross come in that he blocked with his legs, that if that hadn't gone, it could have been tapped in. He's still having good performances. And you don't want to be taking out, a goalkeeper out of this side that I think has really solidified his place in there.
One thing I would say though, fellas, is that the reason why he has gone to Rushden is because former City keeper Dean Snecker is injured. So and Dino is letting in just as many goals as Dylan has. But unfortunately, Dino's been doing it on a regular basis. So I think there's a situation there. It's going to be a good month or so from coming back. So there's a situation there that, and also it gives him game time as well when he goes on. He's playing games. He's getting valuable time that is proper football as opposed to being in the B side. So that's going to be good for us as well going forward.
Looking at Russian's record this season, he's going to get plenty of practice.
He is, mate. Yeah, they're not mucking around, are they, down there? Goodness me.
But talking of teams not having a great season, on the Weymouth website, there's a tab that says goal scorers. So you click on it to have a look, see what's going on, and it says there are no statistics to display. They really are having a bad time.
We know it's going to be difficult, but I think we're playing them at a pretty good time. As you say, Dave, before the last few weeks, they had a bit of a resurgence, didn't they? And when we played them at Clarence Park, they were difficult, weren't they? We just about snuck past them. They really went at us. But yeah, last few results for them have dropped off again. And we've just got, we're going there full of confidence after Worthing. They're going into the game low on confidence. I think we've got to capitalise again. And I think the great thing would be if we got a similar start at Weymouth to the way we started at Worthing, impose ourselves on that game straight away, get a couple of goals, and maybe this time don't concede 4. I think that would be a good way to do it. But we've got to be there confident, haven't we, once again?
Prediction time then, boys. Come on. Rack them up.
Go on then, Weymouth. Go on then, Jake.
3-1 Saints.
And
hey! I'm going to go 3-0. David?
All right, okay. And Ebbsfleet, both of you?
1-1 for me.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was going to say 2-2.
2-2. And I'm just checking to see which of you went for a 5-4 last Saturday. Oh, okay.
Ah, dear.
Are you keeping tabs on this, Dave, or what? Or is it just yours? Go on.
Yeah, I'll say we had a few supporters after the Worthing game, the few days afterwards, ask, did Dave actually enjoy that? He's talked about so many times about how much he wants just a good game of football to actually entertain him, and the result isn't so important. So, Dave, how would that rank in terms of your recent Saints games? Probably in recent few years, that must be really up there, mustn't it?
Oh, it's a cracker. It really was. I say goals don't necessarily make for a good game, but that was just a good game. It was exciting. And like I said earlier, the only surprise was there were no goals in that last 20 minutes because it looked as though it had more goals in it. It's a credit to both sides. Yeah, they did do some of the going backwards passing and whatnot, but overall, it was an attack-minded display by 2 decent sides on the day.
Bloody hell. Look, I mean, what can you say? I remember against Chertsey in 1937, there was a 7-4 humdinger. Mate, that was brilliant. Because we love your positivity, Davs. Tabs, absolutely, mate. And it's what it should be about as well.
I'm glad you chucked in Chertsey Town there, Lee.
Oh,
We can talk
Christ.
about another 5-4 there, can't we? Do you remember that 5-4?
I do, mate.
When
Alan
when
Cochrane.
we spoke to Alan Cochrane on the podcast, we
Yeah.
talked to him about that pass he put through, and it's one of the best passes you will ever see. Totally destroyed us, and they went and scored, of course.
That Chertsey game, it came up in conversation many times on the way back from Worthing on Saturday, mate. It really did.
Good. Nice to know it hasn't been forgotten.
No.
Oh,
Good.
I mean, well, on that positive note, look at that. Wow, what a way to end. If you want to tweet us, it's at Podful Saints. You can email us as well. And I think we're all going to go have a lie down now, aren't we? And we'll see you again, hopefully next week after 6 more points.
Bosh. Take care.
Oh,
Right. See you on Seaside Saturday.
bye, everyone.